What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Bring on the Blitz. It's me, Papi, joined by my boy Rios y el señor Carlos on the other side.
What's going on,
Uh,
everybody?
be quiet, I'm not done yet. Today we're going to be talking about, we're going to be ranking grading the Texans draft picks. Only the top four, the ones that we care about. Um, and we're going to be talking how important is the RAS scores. Find out after these messages. And we're back. Look at that. That was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what you get. When you put me in charge, that's what you get.
Yeah, we're letting Papi in charge on this one right now. He's running the show today. All right, Papi, let's.
And I hate it.
He's just Don Francisco Sao Gigante.
That boy's gonna
um,
come out like Don Francisco out on the show.
bro, why are you talking about my uncle that way? All right.
All right.
All right,
Um,
sorry, Theo.
so, guys, we are days removed from the 2024 draft. And the Houston Texans made a bunch of interesting choices during that night. And like I said at the top of the show, we're going to talk about our thoughts. We're going to give our grades. We're going to give, our football knowledge, like takes on some of these guys. Um, let's talk about the pick number 42, wasn't it?
43.
No, it was 42.
No, it's 42.
Right.
42? 40? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the second round, obviously, because the Texans traded down out of the first round, which, they're making some moves. The first pick for the Texans was the cornerback, Kamari Lassiter. Is that how you say his name? Lassiter?
Yeah.
Um, obviously, a position of need for the Texans. We talked about it all last season, how the secondary was lackluster. They had some pretty good players step up, like the fans wanted, but still a lot of work to be done. And I want to see, do you guys think that he was the right pick at the time?
I think a lot of people didn't have him as the cornerback they would go after. I think a lot of the mock drafts had, them selecting either guys like Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama, or they had them possibly trading up to the first round to get, one of the corners that would have fell. Because a lot of mock drafts they had a lot of quarterbacks going early. Most of them had 6, and that's how many were drafted in the first round. I think they didn't have too many mocks where there was a bunch of tackles taken until like maybe the day before the draft, where they said there might be, somewhere anywhere between 8 to 10 tackles taken in the first round, and there was 10 that were taken in the first round, and it pushed a lot of these guys down.
It's crazy.
We haven't seen that in years, and it pushed a lot of these, defensive players that had first round grades. It pushed them to the middle of the first round, and some of them out of the first round.
Mhm.
So it definitely worked in the favor of a lot of teams that were, that were looking for secondary help, because they pushed them towards the bottom of the first round. From some of the reports I've saw, like it seems the Texans were trying to trade back into the first round. The top-rated corner on everybody's board was Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, and I believe that's possibly the person they were trying to target. And once it didn't go through, they decided to stay pat and just take whatever secondary fell to them in the second round, which was at the best left on the board was Lassiter, because DeJean went to the Eagles, Kool-Aid went to the Saints, and then after that was Max Melton. I can't remember which team he went to, but he was the very next pick. There was a little bit of a run on corners, so they got the guy they felt would best fit their scheme system.
Yeah, kind of like you said, like it wasn't so much like the guy that the best available guy maybe. Like you said, Kool-Aid got taken right before, and Kool-Aid was one of those guys that the Texans were definitely looking at. A lot of the fans thought that he would fall to them, and we know Lassiter isn't like the quickest, but it looks like it's mainly the size and the physicality that he brings. We'll see how he pairs with Derek Stingley. before I get your thoughts on, well, I want to get your thoughts, Carlos. Do you think he starts?
I want to say he is a starter. He would be CB2 obviously. Next to Derek
Stingley?
Stingley or whatnot. What I
What do we
wanted
think of
to
Nelson though? Steve Nelson.
No, he's not. He's not coming back. He's not.
He's not
He's
coming
a
back at all.
no. He's a free
Oh,
agent.
okay.
They're not bringing him back, and I think this is one of the reasons why they're bringing in a guy like Kamari Lassiter, and then anything with depth after Kamari Lassiter as well. Kamari Lassiter was a 2-year standard. He's as an outside cornerback or whatnot. He was using him in man, obviously in man and zone scheme as well. He did have like 0 interceptions. But he had SEC honors obviously because of just how good of his coverage skills it was. I mean, he literally had no 0%, like 35%. Excuse me, he had like absolutely no touchdowns on his side, for a long time. And even though he's not the fastest corner out there, I think he ran a 4.64 at the combine or whatnot.
That's
Is that right,
faster
Rios?
than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for a typical corner, right? That's obviously
Right.
not as fast as you would like your corner to be, but the recent years, obviously, that the even though the 40-yard dash is an important thing, aspect of it is not the most important thing. Now, there's over a bunch of things that these scouts look for or whatnot, but nonetheless, one of his biggest qualities that he carries is the fact that he's very intelligent. He tracks the ball really well, and he has great football instincts or whatnot. And I mean, last time he gave up more than 2 catches up in a game was in 2022, against Ohio State in the playoffs or whatnot.
That was like 5 years ago, dude.
Yeah, and so that's exactly
And who was that quarterback?
exactly CJ Stroud, and that's the last, literally that's the last time he gave up more than 2 catches back then. And so overall, like Lasser, as much as he's not as has like a physical or elite, physical traits or whatnot.
Yeah.
And the size. I mean, his cognition, in his position that he's at is one of the best. So, and he's a good zone match scheme kind of guy as well. That's one of his things. So I do believe that the Texans did get Lassiter at the time that they got him, but I still personally don't believe that's the person that they wanted to get.
Necessarily wanted, right?
Which I think you said that, Papi, and I think Rios, you've mentioned that in other shows that we've done. I do agree with that 100%. I don't think they were settling for them. I honestly, Rios, you had mentioned I think it was last week's show that they were trying to get Kool-Aid McKinstry. That was one of the guys on their mind, and I really thoroughly believe that's the guy that they wanted to get. But right before the Texans went in, I think it was I want to say, was it the Packers that made the trade, and with the Saints?
The Saints,
the Packers and
the
Packers,
right.
The Packers and the Saints both
traded.
Corner.
Yeah,
they both traded.
And
they both traded up.
They both traded up. So at that point, it was the Saints traded up immediately before the Texans did. And since Kool-Aid McKinstry was still on the board, I believe the Texans were going to target McKinstry, again relating it to what you had mentioned before, Rios, which is the Alabama connection that D'Amico has, obviously. And so I think once the Saints took him off the board, I think the Texans had to pivot in a different direction. And I think that they went with Lassiter. And I'm not saying that's a bad pick. I'm really not. I'm just saying I think that was the overall outcome when the Saints had chosen Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Yeah, and like
you
said, like he's not the quickest guy, but because he's so smart, he can read the play very well. He breaks up a lot of plays.
Yes,
like kind of like you mentioned,
and
nobody
scored
time. Yeah, nobody scored on his side of the
direction.
field for however long.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to him being a threat. Maybe he won't get many interceptions, but he's going to swat that ball down. He's going to make the receiver uncomfortable and the catch.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's not like I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think with him, when I see a lot of his highlights, I don't see a lot of it's not interceptions, but he contests the receiver like crazy. He makes the receiver uncomfortable. He has this pass deflections every time he tries to go for the ball. Like he tries to catch it. What I've seen, but it always either like hits the ground or something. But it's a good thing because the receiver, it makes him uncomfortable. Like you aim at that side and you know that he's going to track the ball as best as possible, and there's a very low chance of the receiver actually catching it. Now, of course, in the NFL, it's a whole another level.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you still want a guy that's able to have that mentality to track
Right.
the ball down as best as possible. Now, the only thing I think there was reports saying that there's a possibility because he is like neck and neck with the receiver. There could be some penalties. He could be a guy that gets penalized here and there a little bit more. But and that's the only downfall to it. So I think those kinks though can be fixed with NFL elite coaching. So it just depends on what kind of how he turns out to be. It's just a wait and see, really.
And it is yet to be
Yeah.
seen. We gotta see how it
Mhm.
develops on the field.
Yeah.
And he's a big guy. Like if he can add interceptions to his game, I feel like you know anybody who was questioning this pick is not gonna have anything bad to say after a year or two in the league. So we'll see how it pans out.
Mhm.
But I think building on what Carlos said, based on everything you said and his three cone time, I think he's probably transitions to slot corner more than outside corner because
Mhm.
Jeff
Probably.
Okuda at Atlanta didn't play a whole lot of slot. He played on the outside. And I think that fits his skill set a little bit better because he's a little bit more of a ball hawk compared to Lassiter. But when Lassiter playing closer to the line, playing, going against these shifty receivers, being physical with them, I think that probably fits his skill set a little bit more. Even with the 40 time, that they did show some plays where he kept up with some of the faster guys that were faster receivers that went ahead in the draft. But I think it's again based on everything that we've seen as far as like game film and projections. I think he's probably, if you want your best three corners on the field at all times, which Texans are going to play a lot of nickel, you would have him in the slot and have Okuda on the outside. And maybe they can swap every now and then and see if how comfortable Lassiter is playing on the outside. But more than likely, just to have
Mhm.
your best players on the field at all times, you have him in the slot.
Yeah. And
And
you
that's
have
probably
depth,
gonna be the game plan moving
and you have
forward.
depth aside from that. That's one thing that they
Yeah,
really do.
that's the other thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, what would you guys grade this? We know it was a position of need for the Texans. What do
Mhm.
you guys give this pick?
Go for it, Rios.
I give it a B minus. I think it didn't cost the Packers too much or the Saints that much to move up. So I think they could have, if they were really targeting a certain player, they could have gave up one of these later round picks because I believe the Packers only gave up their pick in like a fourth or
Mhm.
fifth round. They didn't give up a whole lot to move up. Same thing with the Saints. They didn't give up a whole bunch. If they were targeting a specific player, I think they could have been a little more aggressive. So I'm gonna give it a B minus.
Okay.
I'll agree with Rios on that. I think big minus would be a pretty good grade. I'll be a little easier on that. I'm gonna go with a B.
Okay.
Uh, just because I feel like they did. I mean, it's just a little easy. I mean, it's just a little easier, just because I felt like they addressed a position of need. The only thing that in the position that they were in, just because they had to pivot, and I think they pivoted in that direction. So, and it addresses an area of concern for the Texans, which is that opposite side of Derek Stingley. But they will. I feel like they will put them in the slot, like Real said. Also, I think the Texans are really banking on hoping that Okuda, with a change of scenery, will probably be your outside guy, and then have Lassiter in slot. Which, I mean, I feel like would be the best scenario here.
We got to see
Nonetheless,
how it plays out on the
yeah,
field. We still don't know.
it just depends on how it plays out. But honestly, that's probably the best position for the Texans to actually put those guys in. So, and you never know. Like I said in previous podcasts, maybe a change of scenery for Okuda would be great, just like it happened to guys like Blake Cashman last season for that came over from the Jets.
Hmm.
And so you never know what kind
Or
of person.
even or
And
Steven Nelson, because
Steven
he
Nelson,
was another reclamation project. He stepped it
exactly,
up big time. He didn't get the bag this offseason, but he definitely improved his stock. It's just he's probably one of those guys that's going to sign around the training camp, just like
right,
guys out there like Justin Simmons. One
yeah,
of the top safeties, unsigned still, but he's
exactly. So
basically waiting
yeah,
for around camp time to sign.
exactly. So honestly, yeah, I'm gonna say a B for that reason.
Okay, so B minus and B. I'm gonna stay in this around the same range as you guys. I will give it a B plus only because we know it was a position in need, and the Texans, because other teams traded up to get the corners that they wanted. I feel like this wasn't the worst position to pivot to. I do believe that this guy give us what will give the Texans what they need, and we know that we they still have Stingley, so it's not
Mhm.
like it was like a do or die type of pick.
Right.
So I will give it a B plus. So we're all within the B range. Um, also, the next pick, I feel like it came out a little bit of left field or right field.
Left field. That's a fair assessment.
So we got here. Let me see. We'll pull it up. Okay, so the Texans pulled a tackle,
Mhm.
offensive line, a tackle. Yes, a position of need, but maybe not as dire as some of the fans would say on Twitter or Instagram. So, Rios, give me your take on that. What do you think when the pick was called?
So when the pick was announced, it was a bit of a head scratcher because most mock drafts had them going either secondary or possibly a different position of need, like a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Just because they have two of the highest paid offensive tackles in the NFL. Laramie Tunsil, one of the highest paid left tackles.
Yep.
Titus, even though they had him playing, filling in for guard because of the injuries, he is, paid like a right tackle, and that's his natural position. So when they took another tackle, it did catch me a little bit off guard. Just, considering, because the report I saw, this guy was planning a party because he was expecting to go day 3. So he wasn't even planning to go in the second round or the third round. So it was a little bit of an early pick. He was probably on the draft boards, but at pick 59, drafting for depth at that point, it's
does it feel like a little bit of a reach for you?
For me, it does definitely feel like a reach. Just considering the talent that was still left on the board, you still have some guys that had early second round grades, some guys that still had first round grades still available, and they went with a position that really wasn't a huge need. Understandably, they had a lot of injuries in the offensive line, so I can see the thought process of trying to secure that swing tackle because they lost. What was the guy's name? George Fenn. He was the swing tackle for most of the season. He ended up signing with the Broncos, I believe. So there was a bit of a hole at that spot. So I can, somewhat see the thought process, but at pick 59 seems like a giant reach to me.
Do you think that? Well, Carlos, let me get this from you. Do you think that he is the type of guy who would have been there later down the line? We're talking about Blake Fisher here.
I mean, if the Texans were going for him, the next pick was, I think he was 59. The next pick would have been pick 78. So
78, yeah, so like 20 picks down the line type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think somebody might have taken him by then. So I think the Texans were. I don't know if they were trying to get security on him. I honestly had with like I'll agree with Rios. I was one of those guys that last week I thought they were going to take a either a corner like TJ Tampa or something like that, who actually fell a little bit lower.
We talked about TJ Tampa a lot previously.
Yeah, and I think he ended up with the Ravens, if I'm not mistaken. He ended up with.
They need more help, right?
Yeah, I need more help at secondary. There we got Kyle Hamilton. Anyway, so regardless, he fell a little lower than what I expected. TJ Tampa, so that was my pick for pick 59.
Yeah.
But the Texans, actually, I want to say you actually did call it last week when we were doing our predictions. You said I'm going to go and think they're going to go into the offensive line, which I thought I see that, but I didn't think it was such an area of concern at the time.
It was only like I only said it because
right.
You really didn't know how this draft was going to pan out with all the trades.
Right. It was very complex.
The Texans made trading down out of the first round and all that. So
the Falcons threw everyone's draft board just out of
whack.
Yeah, like the whole first round of this draft, like I feel like it threw everything.
Yeah.
The fact that so many offensive players when like what was it, like 14 offensive players?
Something like that, yeah.
6 of them quarterbacks. Like
the first 14 picks were all on offense. The first defensive player taken was the Colts.
Right.
Yeah. So it was very unexpected, but I did say that you never really know, and my mindset is if you want to upgrade the offense, you got to upgrade the offensive line.
Oh yeah,
with how many injuries the Texans had last year, throughout the season. It wasn't just a few games; it was throughout the season. I feel like there was a world where something like this could happen. And as far as when I predicted that, let's put it on quotes. Um, Blake Fisher wasn't even on my radar.
Right.
So this is certainly something that the scouts were looking into, the Miko was
Mhm.
looking into. So I trust the Miko at this point. So I feel like if the Texans made this pick, is because they saw something on this guy.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed with you.
and
I
I know
agree.
you guys haven't given the grade right now, but I will give my grade right now. I feel like because yes, it is. It feels like a little bit of a reach at 59. It wasn't the position of the most need. I feel like safety was more of a position of need going into with these first two picks that the Texans had. I'm gonna give it a C plus B minus. It's really
Okay.
gonna depend how it pans out.
Okay. I want to say that with Fisher, like the thing about him is I've seen he's pretty athletic and actually could fit well in this particular system. What's confusing to me, and I think Rios might have touched up on this, is why they got Blake Fisher at this this early in the round, I
Yeah,
guess. But then again, if maybe the Texans were set on him, based on scout reports and things like that, and maybe they felt like, hey, he's going to get lower down. We're not going to catch him, and this is a guy that we need. But even though you just extended Titus Howard,
yeah,
and you have Laramie Tunsil going on, and he primarily plays in right tackle. So maybe they just got him as a security blanket,
yeah.
just because of
Like a
the
plan B
injuries, like
type
you
of thing.
said. Yeah. So that's the only thing that I can logically come up with why they would pick this guy. And then maybe they felt like, this, let's say if Titus goes out or somebody else goes out, I think the Texans feel comfortable putting this guy on there to replace him. And then, keep in mind, we do, the Texans do get Kenyon Green back next season. They get, I believe, Patterson, who plays center, who actually plays center at a pretty well position. And then you got to remember, you also have Juice Scruggs there, who was playing center. They drafted Juice Scruggs last season.
Yeah, I
And
completely
now
forgot.
you're adding Blake Fisher to this. I think that offensive line is going to be fine.
As
I
long
think
as it stays healthy,
as long as it
that's the
stays
big
healthy. But
question mark,
but
right?
then again, now it's like even if you get healthy and if these guys pan out, even if not for whatever reason, because injuries obviously do pile up, and I do feel like these guys can cover well for the Texans if they if they pan out for
Yeah.
that. So
Well,
it's like
I believe.
rotation almost.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of hit the nail on the head. I feel like at this point it's almost like okay, the O line is done.
Okay,
Like this is our O line for the now and the next few
foreseeable future,
years.
right? Yeah,
This is what the Texans are going to do. This is the how they're going to run it. Now they're going to focus on all the other pieces and making sure that they're winning games.
right.
Um, do you think so? So do you give it a grade? I don't think so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I think my grade for that one, just because the first, I believe that the foreseeable future of the Texas offensive line looks pretty good in my book. I'm gonna give that one, I want to say, a B as well. For that reason, I felt like not A or anything. I think the player himself is a top notch player. I really do. I think it's an A for him, but I think in the positional need for the draft, I'm gonna say a B just for the reason that is that something that you needed right then and there? And if you did, then I get it. I understand. I trust in Nick Casario and D'Amico Ryans' judgment as far as rebuild, with the rebuilding of this team, because obviously it's been successful as of
So
last
far.
season. So I'll give it a B for that.
Okay, Rios. Before you give me your grade, since you think, I mean, since we all agree that it feels like a little bit of a reach, do you think that the Texans could have traded down a few spots? Maybe even 10 spots, and do you think they would have gone this guy, or do you think that Texans did the right thing by taking him then?
I think they could have traded down into the second round, into the third round, excuse me. And more than likely, Fisher was still there. Most mock drafts had him. I think most people on most draft big boards, he was a fourth rounder, day 3 guy.
So what kind of grade would you give it knowing that or believing that, I guess?
Well, for me, I'm gonna use a baseball analogy. I know for the most part, Nick Casario has hit on most of his draft picks since taking over in 2021. But in baseball, not everyone bats 1,000, and I think this might be a miss. Seems like a big
Oh,
reach.
you think it's going to be a miss? Okay.
Just to say hypothetically that both Titus Howard and Larry Tunsil stay healthy for the entire season. You essentially use the 59th overall pick on a guy that's not going to see the field that much when there were still guys that could possibly fill holes in starter positions.
The rebuttal to that would be if both tackles are healthy all season, then there's no problem. There's no issue.
Right.
So
Yeah, but
I feel like it's a win-win situation.
I feel the same way too. Just I feel like it's security blanket and
Yeah. So
an extra.
give me a
depth
grade
there.
real quick so we can move on to the next pick.
Yeah, I'm gonna go C minus.
C minus. Oh,
C
damn.
minus D plus. It's a big
Damn,
reach.
okay.
Like I
Wait,
said,
you
not
mean-
everyone bats 1,000. I think this is a miss.
Okay.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
On the third round, pick number 78, Kalen Bullock, safety from USC. Carlos, I'm gonna go to you first. Actually, no,
Okay.
screw you. Rios, we're gonna go to you first.
Next time you lead.
Talk to me. 6'3", defensive back, Kalen Bullock.
So the USC defense was, to put it kindly, not very good last season. They were one of the worst as far as yards allowed, touchdowns allowed, big plays allowed. Not necessarily, players' fault. I think like the scheme that they were in just wasn't a good fit for the type of players that they had. But watching the tape on Bullock, kid's 20 years old and he's a ball hawk. Like he is out there like a center fielder. And that's something that the Texans were lacking last season. Jimmy Ward can somewhat play that role, but he's a little bit older, not as fast as he used to be, and he's missed a lot of time due to injuries. Jalen Petrie, his strength is not playing out in the that center fielder role. Basically, he is not very good in deep coverage. He is a little bit better closer to the line of scrimmage, not necessarily in the nickel spot, but more of like a in the box safety type of player. So with this Bullock pick, that kind of feels a big area of need, and I honestly didn't believe that Bullock would be available this late in the third round. And I can see why the Texans traded to get him, because he more than likely probably would have went in the next few picks before they would have selected. Because I think they were originally 78 and they traded up to 74.
Yeah, I mean, it does make a difference. Kind of like you said, like he is a pick for almost to cover the weaknesses of some of the defense, right? You said it. You said it yourself. Petrie last year.
Start.
Yeah, I feel like he's one of those players that should see the field pretty early on. We know how inconsistent Petrie could be last season. He would have pretty good games, but some others he would get burnt on the deep ball, like you said. So I feel like this guy, Kalen, he kind of covers that weakness of the defense, which it felt like a lot of, even with the previous pick, it feels like it's more like to patch certain holes rather than to find like the missing piece type of thing.
That's good. I like that one.
Seems like a really good safety. It was another position of need. I feel like if they would have gone safety at 59, I feel like maybe some of the fans would be a lot happier because in the moment now that we have some time to simmer through the picks and everything, like we can make a little bit a better assessment to it. But when it happened, I think a lot of people were shocked that we didn't go safety earlier, the Texans. So what do you think, Carlos? Give me your thoughts.
So it took me a minute to really. I wasn't too sure about this pick, and I've said it, and I think in our other podcast that I wasn't too sure about them. I thought that they were they could have gone in another direction, but more I look at the videos, the more I look at the tape, Rios mentioned how atrocious that Trojan defense was, but he was like one of the only bright spots in that defense that shined. So when I started doing a little bit more research on him, I started realizing that he has amazing footwork. And how do you call and for in really good patterns or whatnot over the top and covers a slot. He's a ball. He's also great at ball tracking as well, and he's a ball hawk. Honestly, he plays with a lot of urgency, which is what D'Amico's all about with a swarm type defense or whatnot. He goes for the ball. He goes for it all the time, and he's overall like he one of the best things is that his speed. He's very fast. He's an athlete that can split the field, range, and overlap verticals, spin the post, but just needing to play with a little bit more discipline or whatnot and control, to cut down a little bit on those mistakes that he kind of makes here and there. But that's things that he can learn in the pro level, with better coaching that he has, with the Texans. So the footwork and the only thing I believe that is a downfall is the ability to tackle correctly, and that's one of the issues that a lot we had the Texans had last season with tackling, and so since that was an area of concern for the Texans last season when they allowed a lot of yards after tackles. I mean, it was a little mind boggling, but in this, he does have that, but I think they're overlooking that fact because of his player ability that he fits this scheme well with D'Amico, and I think that's what he's looking for. Also, the fact that in my opinion, here, the fact that they went all the way to round 3, pick 78 to get a safety, I think that I'm pretty. It kind of tells me that they still have, faith in Jalen Petrie for next season. And that's where I think about it. That where they picked them up a little late because they could have gotten a safety a little earlier on
Right,
or
right.
whatnot in that position, and maybe that's what they think. Maybe I guess to make sense for me, I think that's the
Make it
reason
make
why.
sense.
Make it
Make it
make
make
sense. Yeah,
sense.
I think it was for that. I think they're still believing in Jalen Petrie, in his ability because,
Yeah, and I feel like they shouldn't give up on
yeah,
the kid just yet. He's
exactly.
still pretty
And
young.
so I think they still believe in him. I think that's why they picked the safety a little, this late in the round 3, pick 78 or whatnot. So I like the pick now. As the more I see his game film, because again, like I said, and Rio said it, that Trojan defense was awful, but he's one of the guys, if any, shined in that defense, and so they clearly saw something in him that fits this scheme. And again, he's one of the definitions of swarm, and that's what the Texans are
Right.
looking for. All over the ball hawk, you name it. Plays aggressively, and I think that's what they're looking for. So, did you ask for a grade? I can't remember if you did for
No,
you.
not yet. Before I
Yeah,
ask you for a grade, I just wanted to give some brief thoughts about it.
right.
I feel like a lot during when it was happening, a lot of the fans were okay. So when the draft started, okay, it's secondary, it's a defensive line, then maybe everything else, right? Um, Last season, Texans found it really hard to stop the run, and if Stingley wasn't having like a lights out type of game, it was a lot of back and forth between quarterbacks, right? How many shootouts did CJ have last season? That how many games went to like a field goal because yes, the Texans were scoring a lot, but they couldn't stop the other team, right? They couldn't get stops. So I felt like defense was like the kind of the main thing going forward on this draft, and the fact that we'll get to the last to the fourth pick here in a second, but the fact that they went, what was it, defense offense with the first 4 picks, it kind of tells us that maybe as fans we probably don't know what's going on with D'Amico and Nicasara. Maybe they're cooking something up that the fans are completely unaware about. And even though this pick wasn't like a flashy D tackle or something like that, which is something that I would have liked to see the Texans do. I feel like the fact that it was a safety, maybe a little too late for some of the safeties that were on the board, but the fact that it was a safety again to cover some of the weaknesses that the defense has, I feel like it was a good pick in the end. I don't feel confident enough to give it an A. I'm going to stay with B plus at the moment. Give me your grades real quick.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think not only does it feel like a need for the future because the kid's only 20 years old, can only get hasn't even hit as an athletic prime yet, but it
And
also
great.
feels a need for now. Yeah, right. It also feels a need for now because I think I've been reading reports that they may possibly move Jimmy Ward to play nickel.
Right.
Play nickel in the you can either play nickel in nickel packages or in dime packages. So that will leave Petrie a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, and you can have Bullock out there as like your center fielder.
Yeah.
And I think that gives you a chance to have all your best playmakers on the field at the same time. So I would give this pick an A. This would be the one of the few picks I'd give an A. Like this is a
If
I want to
Rios
say a
gets a
home
pick an A, just put like take a second mortgage, put all your money on black because like this is not gonna happen again. Rios is very
yeah.
not optimistic when it comes to this kind of stuff. So
Yeah, like I said, I give it an A because like it feels a need for now and for the future.
what about you, Carlos?
I'm gonna go with a B plus on that one.
Okay.
So pretty close to Rios's.
I
Not
just
as
don't have the confidence in me to call it a home
yeah,
run
no,
yet.
and it's debatable too because I kind of wanted to give it an A as well, but I think just a B plus because to me it was just the tackling, the wrapping up and a little bit of those mental mistakes. However,
Kind of
they
reminds me of Petrie.
yeah, right as I'm saying, and so honestly, and that's the only reason why, just because of the tackling, that doesn't wrap up fully or whatnot, and some of these guys might get some extra yardage if he doesn't wrap up, and we saw that a lot last season. Uh, as when we were watching the games or whatnot, you saw that a lot, and a lot of guys, they got a lot of yards after tackle, so that's the area of concern for me in that
And,
aspect. But other than that, those are just fundamental skills that they can be
right.
fixed in with the Texans or whatnot, maybe during training camp or as the training develops even more. So just for that reason, but I do like his instincts, his player ability, like I mentioned, and his awareness of the ball, and just the fact that he's an all-out ball hawk. So for that reason, I'll give them a B plus. There's a lot more positives than there are negatives with this kid. So
Definitely, definitely.
B
Like
plus.
and like Rio said, he's only 20 years old, so he's only
Right.
gonna get better.
There's room to grow. There's a lot of room to grow for him.
And we're sure that he's gonna see a lot of the field this upcoming season.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so for the last pick that we're gonna today, talk about today, Ohio State tight end Kate Stover. This one again out of left field. I feel like a lot of the Texans draft this season was like you didn't really expect as a fan. I feel like everybody had like the type of game plan that people thought it was gonna how it was gonna go down, and it felt like every other pick it was something like nobody was really expecting. So talk to me about this tight end, Rios.
Yeah, so he reunite CJ with his old tight end from Ohio State. They only played one season together, but he played pretty well with CJ. And so I'm doing a little bit of background on him, and he was a former running back. Then he played defensive line. Then he transitioned to tight end. So he's a football player. Like, he can wherever you put him, he'll play basically.
So good thing we drafted one of those.
And he has great tackle breaking ability, great run after the catch, and I think he could be a big red zone threat. And it's one of those positions I think it again fills an immediate need because after Dalton Schultz, there's not really a reliable tight end number two. If they want to run two tight end sets,
Yeah.
Brevin Jordan, he has moments here and there, but he's been fairly consistent throughout his tenure here in Houston. So I think with Stover, he can if he plays if he does well in training camp and in preseason, I believe he locks up the tight end two position, and it gives you more options. And that someone that has familiarity with CJ, and I had put on Twitter like, don't be surprised if they go with tight end Stover in round 4, and they did because that familiarity with CJ, and also again, I'm pretty sure he probably told him, hey, this guy's still available, pick him up
Go
like he
for
did
it,
with
right?
Tank Dell, last season.
Yeah, I wonder how much influence CJ does have on those type of picks. We know Dalton Schultz. I thought he was pretty solid for Texas last season. Excited to for him to sign back with the Texans, but like you said, on those two tight end sets, um, doesn't hurt to have somebody else, another weapon for CJ to throw to.
Far, Farmer
And
Gronk. When you see when a guy is out farming and hanging out with the cattle during the NFL draft and he gets the phone call and he's next to a cow, get his gold jacket ready.
Hall of Famer, you already know. You already know. But I mean, he seems like a very good option. Again, nothing that I saw coming. I felt like tight end was probably on the back of my mind when I was thinking about Houston draft picks. What about you, Carlos? What do you think about this draft pick?
I like this one. I think you give a guy that has, like Rio said, some familiarity with C.J. Stroud. When they were together, they did play one season together. He how do you call it? He caught up 36 catches for him, and he had like 406 yards and 5 touchdowns that season with C.J. Stroud. And then once CJ came over this season to Houston, I mean, he still had like 500 yards with his other quarterback or whatnot. So that right there, that shows me consistency. That he's able to be used well offensively or whatnot. I mean, even in that Georgia Ohio State game, he was one of he was one of CJ's targets as well during that game. So they do have that familiarity, even though obviously Ohio State lost to Georgia on that one. Nonetheless, the thing about him, he, like Rio said, he basically was all around. He's an all around football player. He's played offense, defense. He in Ryan Day's offense, he split his snaps almost like 50-50 in line, wing and slot wide. And so, he also spends time with I think he also spent some time with Rose Bowl at the Rose Bowl with as a linebacker as a sophomore. So so he honestly, he knows his way around the offense and defense. The only, I think, negative about him is that he's one of the positive things, obviously, that he's very athletic, but one of the negatives on him is the fact that he's not that good of a blocker. That's the only difference on him. If he had a weakness, that would be it. That he's just not that good of a blocker. And so I think he asked this. A reporter asked him the question. He got a little upset over it in an interview, but at this point, again, a lot of these things that we've said from all of these draft picks is maybe these are fundamentals that can be tweaked, at this level. So just because it says that he's not good of a blocker, such good of a blocker in college, doesn't mean that won't translate over to the NFL. So hopefully, and that's the thing. And I like the pick also because that's another weapon you add to CJ Stroud. I mean, you're going to have Joe Mixon there. You're going to have Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs now added to that mix. And I don't remember if I said Dalton Schultz. And now you have, this guy as well. So that to me, Kate Stover, now you have him as well added into that, who CJ is familiar with.
Yeah.
And so honestly, I think that, again, another weapon. I don't think anybody can disagree that another weapon for CJ Stroud is a bad thing for him. And if they're going to start doing these two tight end splits like they did with it's almost familiar since we're running that Kyle Shanahan offense. It's very reminiscent of when the Texans, when they had Matt Schaub, they used to have Owen Daniels on one side and then they had either Garrett Graham on the other side, or even I can't remember the other person. Joel Dreesen. Joel Dreesen. Remember that? Joel Dreesen, 85. And
they also had him as like a split back almost.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm thinking, that like almost like that Joel Dreesen role at some point. That's what I'm thinking. And that's what it seemed like to me when I started looking into it. I was like, I remember the days of Joel Dreesen, who, I mean, was a pretty key player in that Texans offense back in 2011 or whatnot, right? And I think he went to the Broncos immediately after that in 2012 season. But after that, and so that could be definitely helpful. It's just another arsenal in CJ Stroud. So I honestly believe that's a good pick. I'm going to give Kate. Are we not doing great?
Give me a great. Well, you're
okay. For Kate Stover, I'm going to say a B+ as well. I really did enjoy that pick, and it's just even though it wasn't too much of an area of need, I think that's a helpful area for CJ Stroud to develop his game.
And that's exactly why I'm going to give it an A. The fact that there's a trust between quarterback and tight end, which we know that's been dominating the league for the past 5 years or so. We know that he doesn't have the pressure to start right away and like perform. He has time to develop, right? Which shows taking the tight end one spot. So I feel like it wasn't a it's not really a lose situation for the Texans right here. So that's why I'm going to give it an A. Yes, it's not something I expected, but I was pleasantly surprised when it happened, and seeing that the connection that he has with CJ, I'm excited to see how that connection develops on the field.
Can
What
I
about you,
add?
Rio?
Can I add the fact that I think one of you
No,
guys
you
brought it
cannot.
up, I think it was Rios. Shut up. Um, when he said, you compared it to the Tank Dell situation when CJ mentioned, Tank Dell, and it turned out well for the Texans or whatnot, and then now you got CJ. I guess feel like you vouched for this guy as well, so it feels like guys that CJ Stroud has vouched for. Obviously with Tank Dell, they pound out well. No pun intended there.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so now with Kate Stover, that also may pan out well as well. So you never know, and I do like the fact that the Texans are taking CJ Stroud's into consideration, his
input, yeah.
opinion, and I know that they weren't doing that with previous quarterbacks. One specifically, won't say the name, but because he wanted that, and so uh, and and so now it feels like okay, that's something that the Texans could have done. Taking an input from the quarterback or from one of their players, especially with a guy like CJ Stroud. So I do like the fact that they are taking his input because I don't think obviously I don't know what happens there, but I'm pretty sure if I was a betting man, I would bet on the fact that CJ Stroud had some sort of influence on getting Kate Stover over from Ohio State to the Texans.
Okay. Rios, did you give it a grade?
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I agree with what Carlos mentioned. I definitely believe CJ did. Probably pass the word along. Hey, this Stover guy's available. Go and select them. Kind of worked out when I did it last year with the Tank Dell guy.
Yeah.
Is he going to be
But
2 for 2?
Hey,
we
even
shall
if he's
see.
batting 500, I'll still take it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 500 is still a pretty good batting average. But no, I think it also gives you it feels an immediate need if he does live up to being that tight end number 2, because it gives you options. You can play him in the H-back role. You can play Reverend Jordan in the H-back role. It gives them a lot of options on offense, similar to what the 49ers do with Juszczyk. Like they play him in the backfield sometimes. Sometimes they line him out wide. It gives them a lot of options. And like we mentioned this episode, like having too many weapons for your franchise quarterback is never a bad
It's never
thing.
a bad thing. Never a bad thing. So give me a grade real quick.
A minus. I
A
think this
minus.
is a
Okay.
pick
But
just like with the Bullock pick. I believe it fills a need of it fills a position of immediate need, and it also looks towards the future because Schultz, is closer to 30, has about 3 years. What his contract is, I think after his contract, they'll revisit the situation at that point.
Yeah.
And if this guy hits his potential, because he seems like the type of person that when they like Carlos had mentioned earlier when they did the interview with him and they brought up his blocking, he took it a little bit personal. I think something like that, like he kind of lit a fire under him, and he wants to make a
Cut
point
to
of
the
like, hey,
Michael Jordan meme, and I took it personally.
personally, and
yeah.
watch him be a roadblocker out there.
No, we'll see. We'll see. So I feel like overall we feel like the Texans had a pretty decent draft, probably in that B plus range. Um, Obviously, they had other picks on the later round. I know they went O line again, linebacker, a running back as well. But I feel like we can all agree that all things considered, we still haven't seen how it pans out on the field, but we feel like the Texans had a pretty decent draft, right?
I
Yeah,
agree.
they picked a couple positions of need, but for the most part, they did most of their grocery shopping during free agency. This
Exactly.
was just getting a couple snacks.
Yeah.
Couple
For the road, little snacks for the road.
Okay, so moving on from that,
Can we give an overall grade though?
I will say B, like solid
Okay.
B, no plus, no minus, just B.
Solid B. Okay. Rios?
I'm gonna go B minus overall draft.
Okay. Solid B for me as well.
Solid B, yeah.
Nothing flashy, but they got what they needed. That's
I
it.
believe
It
so.
was solid. I think a lot of people, considering how aggressive they were last draft,
Right.
they had higher expectations. I, I
Right.
will admit that I was one of those individuals that I anticipated the Texans, to be a little bit more aggressive, just considering how deep this draft class was. But they, looking, taking a night to sleep on it, they made solid additions, and they went with what fits their system best and the type of players that they're looking for, and we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right.
All right, then we'll leave that at that. Um, what was the next topic? I said at the top of the show, and I completely forgot about.
You're good. It's the
Rest
RAS
scores.
testing score. Yeah, let's
The
find out.
newest too.
Yeah, the
These
US2.
commercials.
Here we go.
That one had no music. I don't know. One day we'll get one day we'll be good at this, guys. I promise. I'm gonna hand the command over to Carlos because I completely forgot what the thing was. Go.
No worries. So the RAS tested score is another type of score where it's supposed to look at the entire athlete, and it's supposed to break it down, and it's color coded as well. So like how do you call it, like a street sign. So it's like either green is the best, yellow is and then red is like poor or whatever, right? So what I want to do, I want to pull up really quick. Overall, this season's this draft scores, and I think 10 is the highest. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rios. Is it 10 is the highest? Yeah, 10 is the highest, so that would be green. And so the closer to 10, the better.
Is this like physical attributes, mental attributes?
Yeah. It grades it on a lot of
Physical.
things. Yeah,
All
physical
physical stuff.
attributes. Yeah. So
Okay.
let me share really quick. The raw scores for this particular draft. Let me get it going real quick. All right.
Is this something that they do every single year?
They started in like 2013, the relative athletic score, and they've been doing those ever since. Okay, so
They do every day.
if I don't know how serious the NFL takes these, but there's teams that do, I guess, look into them heavily and to overview an athlete. Now, as you can see here, the only one closest to 10 is probably Cade Stover.
Yeah, tight end.
He's the only one that's in green. I mean, you got Solomon Byrd, defensive end that was drafted. Also, we didn't talk about him. He's got like the lowest one in all of them here, and then Jahar Jordan is a running back from Louisville who we'll talk about him eventually. He got a 4.6, and then after that, as you can see, they go up. So the 10, like I said, 10 being the highest, but to me, and this is what I want to bring up. To me, this here, it kind of proved that really, Nick, I don't think they're or as the Texans, I don't think they're really looking at these RAS testing scores, because if you were looking at those, I think all of those would be all either green or some yellow, And what I wanted to do is I wanted to point out some names that also tested in the low.
But let me, because I'm having issue understanding this. So this is all physical, correct?
Yes.
Right.
It measures your size, your weight, your 3-cone drill, your 40 time, your vertical.
Okay, so
I feel like
it's
an overall score basically.
It's all across the board,
right?
Like the same thing. Like it doesn't vary per position, right?
Right. It includes the 40 also, so it includes like all the things you do at the combines or whatnot.
Yeah, but I feel I mean I know we're gonna touch on this in a second.
Yeah,
I don't feel like a quarterback needs to run a 4.4.
Right, but I think it's based on position, Papi.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking. Is it based on position?
Right, yeah.
It's different for every single position.
Yeah, like you're not gonna rate your quarterback the same rating that you would a running back.
Exactly. Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you're not gonna look at O line. You're not gonna look like the O line, the D lines, 40 times.
If running a 4.2,
exactly. I would want my fastest, like with the higher hops, like type of guys to be, my
So
corner, my
the
running
way it
back,
works is
my receiver.
based on positional needs, it values certain attributes a little bit
Abilities
higher
more.
than
Okay,
O,
got
where it's like
Yeah.
for like running back, basically the skill positions, it values the 40 time and the vertical and the
Right.
3-cone drill a little bit higher than say like
kind
your
of like in Madden
offensive lineman.
when you grab a guard and you put him at running back, it goes from an 88 to like a 72. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I wanted to
like
go.
that.
I wanted to go over names that you will recognize. Yes, that's the thing. Names that you will recognize that scored really low raw scores and still went on to become Pro Bowlers.
Can we guess the score?
What's that?
Don't tell us. We'll guess the score. Closest wins.
Okay, deal. All
Got
right.
it?
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Rodney Hudson, 143 starts, 3-time Pro Bowler, and one-time second team All Pro. Guess what his RAS score was? Rios.
I'm gonna go 6.2.
Okay, Papi.
Is it from 1 to 10 or 0 to 10?
Right, 1 to 10. Yeah.
Okay, so you cannot have 0. Got it.
Actually, you might, but I'm not sure. So let's just start at 1.
I'm gonna go. What you said, Rio? 6 point what?
6.2.
Okay, I'm gonna go 4. Just
okay.
4.
1.33.
Jesus.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
Three-time
Okay.
Pro Bowler. Got it. Okay. So this guy Solomon Burr, he's gonna be Hall of Fame.
I mean, it's just a comparison, obviously, not a guarantee.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Edge, Darius Smith, 107 games played, 3 times Pro Bowler, 1-time second All-Team Pro. Go ahead, Rios. Guess his RAS score.
Well, since I went a little bit higher in the last one. Let me go a little bit lower. Let me go 4.7.
Okay, Papi.
I'm gonna go 2.8.
Okay, 3.73.
Okay, so Rios was closer. Okay, gotcha.
All right, the next one y'all definitely will know. Dalvin Cook, running back, 74 games started, 4-time Pro Bowler. Guess what his RAS score was? Rios.
Go for
Dalvin
it.
Cook.
2.3.
Papi?
1.9.
4.65.
Okay, I guess that's not bad compared to some of the other scores.
All right, nose tackle Jonathan Hankins, 120 games started. Guess what his RAS score was?
1.6.
All right, and Papi?
5.
2.8.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
This one, this guy here, defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, 102 games started, 3-time Pro Bowler, one-time second All-Team Pro. Okay, RAS score, Rios.
3.9.
Okay, Papi.
2.7.
5.14.
Dude,
okay.
I suck at this. Jeez.
Oh, you're fine. All right,
is there a pattern that I'm not seeing?
All right, you ready for this one?
Okay.
I think you guys may know this guy. Wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, 145 games started, 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first team All Pro, and 2-time second team. Guess what his RAS score was? DeAndre Hopkins.
3.6.
Okay. Bobby?
4.2.
You were actually close, 4.9.
Okay, yeah, because I cannot imagine him having bad physical anything.
You know who else had a bad RAS score? Pretty recent. Tank Dell.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had a pretty
short,
decent
though.
season.
So I can give him that. He's short, so maybe he didn't reach the thing.
Oh, it does go to 0. It does go to 0. I just
Let's go
realized
0. Okay, so is the next one 0.5?
No. Actually, no. Okay, running back.
Brady, guess.
Running back, Mark Ingram.
156
games played, 3-time Pro Bowler. Guess what his RAS score was, Rios?
2.3.
Papi?
3.9.
2.57.
Close.
Damn, dude, what are these grades, bro?
All right, the next one. Oh, good.
No, go ahead.
All right. I was going to say,
I got a good point about
safety, the Honey Badger himself, Tyrann Mathieu. All right. Honey Badger, still kicking. Ball hawk. Loved having this guy on there, but, he had to go to Kansas City, but I get it. All right. 137 games played.
I don't.
Started, 3-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first team All Pro. Guess what his RAS score was? Rios.
4.9.
Papi.
1.8.
4.32. So we were kind of.
See, I have no
I was
idea what these
close.
scores
All right,
are.
I'm gonna
Jesus.
do 2 more, and that's it. So we can see like all these things. Okay. Wide receiver Jarvis Landry, 116 games started, 5-time Pro Bowler. Jarvis Landry. Rios, guess his RAS score.
5.2.
Okay. Papi.
4.5.
0.27.
Oh man.
Did he even show up?
Yeah, apparently. And the last one. There are more notable ones, but these are the ones that I highlighted here. All right, wide receiver T. Higgins, 42 games started, 2 seasons of 1,000+ yards. T. Higgins, what's his RAS score, Rios?
1.8.
Papi.
He feels like a solid 2.5 type of guy.
4.13.
I have
So
no idea what I'm talking about. Okay,
no, it's fine because these are all guesses. So there's really
I'm
no
literally gonna
small
look
algorithm
up-
here.
because a lot of them were just like random position players.
Right.
I'm gonna look up Thomas Brady.
It wasn't there around in 1999.
It wasn't around at the time. We said 2013.
Okay,
You know what the RAS reminds me of? Tell me
Huh?
what word you didn't hear this draft cycle. S2.
That's 2.
Because last season, CJ Stroud, they leaked his scores that he was among one of the, I think, in the 18th percentile. It was one of the lowest scores that they had that had leaked.
Stop.
And
Stop.
a lot of people.
Stop.
What?
Aquí on Google,
En la Google.
Aquí,
en la Google,
En el
me
Google?
dice, right, that Tom Brady infamously, English, registered a 2.74. So
Really?
was it it looks like it was around farther than that.
well, they didn't officially start tracking until 2013, but you can
Okay.
go back and look at the combine results and
And then just add
basically
from there.
put it in the
2.74
generator.
sucks, but I feel like for Tom Brady, I probably would have guessed like 0 point something.
Yeah, I would have guessed like
He just looks like that man has never jumped in his life.
yeah, but you didn't hear the words S2 at all after CJ Stroud, went on to have the season that he had and became the offensive rookie of the year.
So
And you didn't hear one single mention of S2. And I think with the RAS scores, like with some of these guys that are Pro Bowlers and potential Hall of Famers, if this next group of guys that have low RAS scores this past couple of drafts, basically put up those type of accolades, it's going to be a thing of the past. It's like with the S2, because I don't think we're ever going to see another S2 score again.
Should we? So going back to what Carlos said, should we even care about this stupid score?
I don't think it's relevant. I
think it's a
think it's
waste of
something that
time.
maybe scouts
I think it's
look
a
at,
waste
or
of
maybe
time.
even teams look at, but I don't think it overall tells you the full, there's no way of it predicting what kind of player you're gonna be in the next level in the NFL. There's absolutely no reason why. I mean, it could be something to look at, and maybe you can look at it as, hey, maybe we could improve these things, and maybe they do that already, where they look at it like maybe those are things that we can that the scouts can have, pass the information on the coaches and be like, this are things that he can improve on, or this person can improve on these things. But I don't think overall it should be one of those scores that maybe we don't draft this guy because of this reason, or and things like that.
No, I think
Looking
it's a
back to
waste
the
of
players
time,
of the
and
past,
we shouldn't even talk about it. I feel like it's ridiculous. It doesn't tell you anything.
It really
tell you
does.
anything.
It's the new S2. But now looking back at players from the past, who would have a low RAS score? Jerry Rice. Didn't have a high vertical. Didn't have a very fast 40
Right.
time. He was like a 4.6, 4.7, almost 4.8. Didn't have, like the physical traits of the RAS measures. Nothing popped off the charts if you look at his old,
Right.
combine results. And this guy went on to, just have a quiet little career as the greatest receiver of all time. Like,
Basically, yeah.
So overall, in conclusion,
and Tom Brady, same thing.
right. Overall, in conclusion, I don't think that the RAS score really tells you what kind of player the person's going to be. It should just be used to as a guide or whatnot. What are some things that can be improved upon, and that's about it.
It's almost like the combine as well, because that's basically, you see a bunch of workout warriors, and then you see guys that their film is much different than what their measurables are.
Right.
Like there's a difference between 40 time and game speed.
Okay.
Perfect example would be a guy like Tank Dell. Like his 40 time was only like a 4.5. Not, nothing like out of the. It's not blistering speed per se.
Right.
Okay, but if you look at the game film, he plays much faster than that.
Guess CJ's RAS scores. I don't know.
It's not available because he wasn't there for that.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So 0.
It is believed to be around the range of 5.5 though, which is interesting because Lamar's was like 4.9.
Yeah.
I'm like intrigued about this RAS, whatever waste of time thing, just to try to decipher why even look at it. Why do we even care about it? Or why do people?
Well, I mean, it's just probably areas of need. That's about it. Areas of that need improvement overall. I think athletically for a player. And then again, I mean, just I think series when we have done to end it or whatnot. I think in areas and when we have spoken to like kids, guys that are trying to make it to the NFL in our other podcasts, they say that when we asked a few of them of how was your speed or whatnot, and they're trained to get to the lowest speed, and they said there was times when one in particular, I can't remember who it was, they said there were times when the speed that I got on the combine was a lot slower than what I was doing in practice
normally.
So it just depends on what that type of day. It almost seems like
You know what I would love for them to do. So do the combine or whatever, do the numbers whenever, like before they get drafted, and then like year 5, have every single player do it again, just to see the difference, if there's any at all.
Well, look at guys like Terrell Owens. I think he recently did a 40, and he was still in the 4s. Like, with all the knee injuries and pushing 50.
Yeah,
still like a 4.4, 4.5. Like
dude, that's crazy.
All right, gentlemen, anything else that we'd like to say, or is that going to be it for this week?
No, that I can't say on there.
All right. All right, guys, that's going to be it. Papi, do you want to end it? I'm sorry, I just took over.
No, I do not want to end it. I hate it every second of it. I'm kidding. Join us again next week. My boy Rios, El Papa Carlo, and Papi, this guy. And we're going to talk about other, football things next week, probably, I'm guessing. So you guys take it easy. Be safe. And peace.
That's it. Peace. See y'all next week.